What's going on, everyone? I'm Travis Brown with the Eagle, and this is a pretty robust edition of the quarterback room. Yeah, that's Nick Starkel over there, former Texas A&M quarterback, and this is the episode right after Jimbo Fisher gets fired. A&M puts out a new quarterback in Jaylen Henderson, and he goes off. There's a lot to break down in Texas A&M football. But first, Nick, how's it going? How are the Sea Kings?
It's going great. It's going great. Sea Kings have a semifinal matchup, a rematch of last year. We're playing Yorba Linda High School. We got a home game, so we're hoping for the best and to be able to make it to the CIF finals and be playing right after Thanksgiving next week.
Of course, Starkel, a passing game coordinator, quarterbacks coach over there at Corona Del Mar High School in California. Well, let's get right to it. I know for me, Sunday morning was hectic. My wife had already started getting ready for church, and she like yells from the other side of the house, "Oh my gosh, Jimbo's been fired." I didn't expect it. If something like that was going to happen, I thought it was going to happen after the season or next year. I think a lot of us caught off guard. Where were you? How did you hear about it? And did it surprise you?
I think it definitely surprised me. I had just gotten up. I'm 2 hours behind Central Time, and so out here, I think I had just gotten up. I was on my way into the office to go work on some film, break down some film, and I saw the headlines. I saw it from Twitter, and I wasn't necessarily surprised because I had heard a little bit of grumblings, but in terms of the timing wise, I thought that it was a little interesting. I thought, like you were saying, I thought that they'd let him finish out the season at least, and definitely, get that LSU game in because we know how important that is, not only to him but to the whole team. And so, surprised me a little bit, but I think that the narrative and the expectations that were there might not have just been met in this season, and that's quite frankly that's all that people really care about right now is what are you doing right now to better us and to reach our goals that we have.
So we all know that Jimbo Fisher is a quarterback guy. You worked very closely with him. What was your relationship like, and what do you remember the most about working with Fisher and what he brought to A&M while you were there?
Yeah, as a quarterback, you are the closest player to a coach, basically. You're an extended arm of the coaching staff. You're half player, half coach, because you've got to be able to talk and see the game like a coach, and you've got to be able to relate to your teammates, motivate your guys, just like every other player and their responsibility. And then, you've got to go out and execute. Being with Coach Fisher, he was head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback coach. And so he was with us 24/7 when we were in the facility. There was not a meeting that we were in as quarterbacks that he wasn't in running for us. And so we got to spend a lot of time with him. And I truly think that Coach Fisher he's a great man. And that's the first thing is he's a great man. And so he challenged us, he challenged us daily, and he tried to bring the best out of us. And sometimes while I might not agree with what was said towards me or how something was taught to me, at the end of the day, he wanted what was best for me. And I truly believe that I became a better man, a better student, and a better player because of him. And so I think that all those guys that were in that quarterback room, while we know and everyone else knows on the team, he did not hold anybody even close to the same standards that he held as quarterbacks. I think all those quarterbacks, can look back after they get away from it for a little bit and be like, you know what? He actually helped me out, and he did probably have my best in interest. And so I've got nothing but good things to say about him. While I know we butted heads a couple of times and might have led to me getting kicked out of practice, I'm grateful for it because at the end of the day, it made me a better man. It made me be able to deal with failure, deal with adversity, face it, go head on with it rather than turning away from it. And so I'm thankful for him and thankful for everything that he did. He came into a team that we were lacking a little bit of culture, and he said toughness is going to be first, and he did that. I remember first spring ball that he was in there. We're just getting to learn the offense, and we're finally having to ID our protections, kind of like we had talked about in our first QB room. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I'm just pointing guys out, and I'm just, I see guys in the NFL doing it. I'm just going to point those guys out and we'll be good. And I was completely butchering it. And he'd rip me in film, and I'd try to understand, and I'd try to make it, I'd try to make it make sense. And then I'd go out there and I'd do it wrong again. And so eventually we go out to practice, and our green jerseys are no longer in our lockers, and we're wearing our maroon or our white jerseys for the day. And he goes, "Hey, by the way, quarterbacks are live. You guys are going to learn your protections today." And he just kept us live for all of spring ball. And then when we got to the spring game, I'm thinking, oh, there's no way we're going to be live. And sure enough, I get out there, and it's my maroon practice jersey, and the QBs were live. But he wanted to see how tough we were. And while some quarterbacks would be like, "This is absolutely ridiculous," we kind of flipped it on its head, and we were like, "All right, cool. Well, hey, now I get to actually hold on to the ball." And all these guys that are saying like, "Oh, you would have been sacked on that one, I would have got you." Well, now they really got to sack you in the backfield. So it was great. And it definitely made us a lot tougher, and it made us learn at a quicker tempo than what we were kind of used to.
Yeah, we talked a little bit before we got on that there was, I think everyone sees the tough quarterback whisper side of Jimbo, but you had some funny stories from that quarterback room too. What do you remember that makes you laugh when you think about your time with Jimbo in the quarterback room and around him?
Yeah, a lot of stories about Coach Fisher. I think that one of the coolest things was Coach Fisher was a huge hunter. Like, he was always going on hunts, or people were inviting him on hunts. And so the quarterback room always had like fresh venison jerky, or like sausage that had been made and then taken out there from like a hunt that he had gone on. And so we were always very well fed as quarterbacks. That's for sure. We go into the QB meeting room, and he'd be like, "Hey guys, try this out." And so we always get to do that, share those experiences together, share some of the food from a hunt that he had done. And that was probably one of the coolest things. And then the whole year, Connor Blomerick was called Spicoli. He just kind of carried himself like the character from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And for the bowl game, Connor kept saying, "Guys, I'm going to order pizza, and I'm going to have it delivered into our room for the quarterback meeting." And while he didn't get it delivered into the room, he got pizza delivered and brought an entire box of pizza into the quarterback room. And when Coach Fisher tried to yell at him, he was like, "Coach, I'm just being Spicoli." And he got a huge kick out of that. And so there were some really fun times in there. And honestly, QBs, like, you bond over the hardships that you go through. Hey, he's ripping one guy, and, we're laughing in the back because he's absolutely ripping somebody. And then he turns around and starts ripping us, and then that guy starts laughing. And so it was a really great relationship that we had. And it was built on toughness and respect, being the first two core values kind of for us in that quarterback room. And so I'm just grateful for him and everything that kind of he did for that university and for me personally. I know when I had to make that decision to transfer out, Coach Fisher could have been angry. He could have said, "You're leaving this team, you're turning your back on this university and this team." And that's not at all what he said. He said, "Look, we want to help you out." He allowed me to stay in the facility. He allowed me to continue working out there. He kept me on scholarship so I could be on track to finish my degree at Texas A&M. And he even helped me out through that process. I remember I'd be working out in the weight room, and he'd come up to me and say, "Hey, kind of what schools are you looking at? You need me to talk to some people." And the whole way that he handled that was very professional, and the same way that I feel like if it were his son that was trying to go transfer somewhere, that he would handle that as well. And so I've got nothing but gratitude towards him, and I'm thankful that he was at Texas A&M and I could have been a part of one of his teams.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the guys who are there now are in a position that you also were in for the most part. And, that Kevin Sumlin was fired right after the last game. So you had that bowl practice under an interim head coach. A&M now has 2 more regular season games and a bowl game. What is that transition like with an interim coach, and how everything looks heading into those final games of the season?
It's a weird time. This is, as you know, our coaches kind of that we had when Coach Sumlin was there and Coach Sumlin got let go. It was a pretty simple message. We only had one game left. We only had the bowl game left. And it was a pretty simple message. It was, hey, guys, as an offense, we are going to absolutely empty all of our ammo that we have because this is our job interview for another school. You know, they kind of knew, hey, look, I might not be around here. And so what we're going to go put on display at the bowl game, that's going to be the last thing that I put on film as an offensive coordinator while I'm going to look for a job, or as a receivers coach, or all that stuff. And so we knew, one, we want to win this game. And two, we want to give back and help these coaches out and really play for these coaches as they continue to go. I mean, they're trying to make a living for their family and for themselves the same way as anybody else is. And so we took that as kind of a badge of honor, and we're like, all right, let's do it. You know, we've got nothing to lose and all to gain, and we want to help these guys out. And I think you're going to see a lot of players rally behind this interim coach in Coach Robinson. One, the players absolutely love him. I'm sure you could tell from some of the tweets of some of the old players or some of the current players. They're fired up about this opportunity for him, and so they are going to play hard. I mean, you can expect that defense to be flying around the football and that offense to be playing free, mistake-free, not even worrying about mistakes football. They will happen, but I feel like they're going to be a lot more free in these next coming weeks. And I'm excited to see kind of what they can do underneath Coach Robinson.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it there a little bit, but this, you know, that initial hearing of that your head coach has been fired, the team meeting, and then that first week of practice, how much of an adjustment is that?
So there's not going to be a huge adjustment in terms of structure or scheduling, but it's I hate using the word vibes, but there's just something that's a little off, and you're not sure how to feel. You're conflicted internally. You're still out there, and you don't want to just go through the motions. And so this is a point where Coach Robinson's leadership is going to be put on the biggest stage possible. The entire team is looking now for someone who's going to be that leader, who's going to be that voice that is bringing us together and pressing us forward towards that goal of winning these last couple of games. And so Coach Robinson has a beautiful opportunity to go do that. He's got the respect from the players. He's got all of their attention there, looking for a leader, and I fully expect for him to step into that spot and run with it.
Yeah, so my wife jokes with me now that my new favorite college football game, you know, some people play like Immaculate Grid. My new favorite college football game is 6 Degrees of Nick Starkel. And so here's your fun fact. Jaylen Henderson, Texas A&M's quarterback who came in and played last week, last threw a pass 2 years ago before this last game, and that was against San Jose State with Nick Starkel playing quarterback. So, Nick, I know we talked before. You said you don't really know Jaylen very well, but you were able to watch the game. What did you see from him, and why did this offense look so good after so many weeks of kind of trudging along?
Yeah, I think that you saw a quarterback who was not afraid to make mistakes and was quick in his decision-making skills. Like that is the recipe for an offense, especially if you've got an offensive line that might not be getting everything going at, you know, they might not be grading out at a 95 every game. You know, it's easy to play behind an offensive line that's grading out at 95. What's tough is being able to say, hey, look, I'm going to drop back. I'm going to get my eyes on my read. If it's not there, I'm going to go make a play with my legs. And that's what you saw Jaylen Henderson do. Now, also, you've got that effect of when a team's quarterback goes down, the rest of the guys tend to rise up and say, like, all right, hey, we've got to lock in. We've got to pick it up so that there's no drop off or anything. And so, you know, hats off to all those guys, receivers, running backs, offensive line. Can't forget the tight ends in there as well. And you saw really an elevated play through the whole offense, and Jaylen matched that stride for stride. He went straight into it, did not blink, did not hesitate. One of the things that I preached, you know, to my quarterbacks here is, hey, you've got to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Because if we're waiting for you to get ready as an offense and you're not there yet and your number's called, we can't go anywhere. And so you got to stay locked in, stay ready to go, which is exactly what he had been doing. And it shows by the tape. And so I'm absolutely fired up, and I'm really excited to see what he continue to do.
Yeah, for me, when I looked at what was going on there, it was a really good game plan tailored to him as well. When you have multiple quarterbacks on a team, some of them have different skill sets. Jaylen mentioned in the press conference, they have different kind of game plans tailored to each quarterback. What did you see from the game plan that helped make him so successful? Some of the play calling and kind of how A&M's offense shifted a little bit with Jaylen at quarterback, and what does that look like when you have those multiple quarterbacks with multiple skill sets and you have those different game plans?
Yeah, I mean, having different game plans for your quarterbacks, it makes a lot of sense. Now it's difficult in actual. It's not difficult in the methodology of it, but it's difficult in like how you actually get it done, because it takes time to rep those guys doing different things. You can't just rep the same thing over and over again. You've got to kind of have, hey, these are the plays that they're more comfortable with. And what's going to get a guy comfortable is getting him completions early. And so how do you do that? Okay, you've got your bootlegs, you've got a couple of swing screens, you've got quick game that you're trying to get the ball out of his hand. Hey, just get him a couple completions, calm him down, let him get rolling, feeling what a completion's like, seeing the field. Like we talked about, how you can eliminate half of that field pre-snap, and you can just, hey, I'm over here. This is my quick game. It's 1-2, not there. Get out of it or check it down. I think you're seeing those type of plays with Jaylen right now is, hey, let's not think about everything all at once. Let's not make you go through a progression of 1, 2, 3, 4, check down. Let's eliminate half of the field pre-snap, or right as the snap's going, we just know, hey, we're there, and then we're checked down. Getting him on the move, getting the bootleg going, finding a tight end in the flat, getting a screen pass going, stuff like that. And then I think what's really great with Jaylen, and I'd love to see them do quite a bit of, is let's tempo these guys. When you're playing a team, especially in the SEC, you don't see a crazy amount of up-tempo offenses. And I think that's something that he could be really good at is those up-tempo plays. Because when you're going fast like that, the line is pretty much just track blocking right on their alignment. Hey, we're going to go inside zone to the right. We're leaving that defensive end. And I think that you can get some guys real quick, and you might even be able to get Jaylen on a pull read if that defensive end crashes. And then at that point, he's just creating. And so I'd love to see a little bit of more up-tempo with him and continue to go with what he's doing.
Yeah, and to me, as a football offense, novice, it did seem like there was a little bit more of that read read option game, the RPO game, in with him, because especially with his legs, is that something that you saw? And how does those type of play calls with a guy who can run help him out a little bit in the passing game as well?
Yeah, RPOs are one of the most simple yet effective forms of play calling. It's very easy. Hey, I've got outside zone going to the right. I've got one player that I'm watching, and it's that outside backer. It's that safety on the left. If he crashes down and goes towards the run, I'm going to pull and I'm going to throw to replace. If he stays back, I'm going to hand that off. And so there's ways to simplify this game. And it involves, hey, look, let me just, as a quarterback, find where my key read is, and I'm going to keep my eyes on him, and he's going to tell me what I'm doing with the football. And then after that, hey, now it's just playing catch. Maybe it's around another defender or something, but now I'm just playing catch with those guys. And so they're quick plays. They're not difficult in terms of trying to find those completions. You're not asking somebody to drop back and go through a whole process. They're quick. They're right there. And then with one little minor change, we can now just read that defensive end, and now we're pulling up to go run off of that guy. And so I would love to see more of that, and then tempo with that. That'd be really great.
So moving into the second game and then maybe even the third game with Jaylen Henderson, depending on Max Johnson's injury and everything going on behind the scenes there, what is there a a learning curves? Is there a plateau? Is there film that guys can have and game plan? Do you expect to see any changes in week 2 and week 3 with him, or is this the kind of offense and the kind of player that you saw what he was able to do against Mississippi State, and you could maybe expect to see that moving forward? Is there any kind of week 2, week 3 change after you've made that debut?
It kind of goes all on what a defense is presenting itself as. And so while Mississippi State might have been a little bit more stagnant in their looks, you can expect, hey, if they're just going to be reading one guy, let's make sure we're moving around pre-snap and moving those guys around, and we're dummying him to go in and then he's dropping back out. You can expect teams to mess with his RPO look because a stagnant defense and it's just catch a snap, watch that guy turn and throw or hand it off. The ways that you get around that is you get movement going. You start sending blitzes from weird areas that you haven't been sending blitzes from. You go away from his eyes. You hold that guy that he's looking at, and then you bring down somebody else. And so you can expect teams to get a little bit more creative with that. Now, I think they're going to have a good game plan because they're going to know that that's happening. And so while I don't think there's going to be a huge learning curve, I think that he's going to start seeing a lot more, multiple defenses being thrown at him, because that's kind of how you get the RPO to slow down, is that you just send a bunch of different coverages at him. So he's not looking at the same thing play after play after play. So I wouldn't expect a huge drop off, but yeah, there might be a couple of times where it's like, all right, hey, the defense got us on that one. Don't force a throw. If you do pull one and you end up making the wrong read, hey, get as many yards as you can and get down. But I'm excited for him for these next couple of games.
And I know this sounds pretty simple, and it is pretty simple, but when you have an offensive line, like you said, that isn't necessarily grading out 95, when you have a guy who can run these read options, RPOs, has his legs, how much does that help an offensive line in what they have to accomplish?
Oh, it helps them so much. It helps them so much, especially on first and second down, because now those defensive ends, when they are taking that step off the ball, well, now they've got to shuffle and read. They've got to find out, okay, is this a zone read? Is this a bootleg? Kind of what's going on, because they're probably that contained player, and they don't want to get out leverage, especially if Jaylen can get around them. Well, hey, now he's open to the whole rest of the defense. And so you could get a little bit slower of a pass rush. A lot of teams, what they'll do is they'll actually tell those nose guards, hey, rather than trying to pass rush and get by somebody, stand up and try to read off of those guys. And that's going to give Jaylen some more time in the pocket. And so I think it's going to do nothing but help that offensive line, adding the threat of the read option, the bootlegs, and then just the pure speed to be able to get out of the pocket.
So going back a little bit to the coaching before we close this thing up, another round of 6 degrees of Nick Starkel. 3 of the possible candidates that have been thrown out there as that could be the next head coach at Texas A&M are guys like Mike Elko at Duke, Jeff Traylor at UTSA, and even Elijah Robinson, the interim head coach that's leading Texas A&M right now. And you've played under all 3 of those guys. Of course, Mike Elko was at Texas A&M while you were here, and Elijah Robinson as well. Jeff Traylor was at Arkansas when you were there. Can you tell me a little bit about each of these guys and from the characteristics that you know about them, why they would make a good coach at Texas A&M? Yeah, definitely. And I'll start with Coach Robinson. Coach Robinson is the definition of a player's coach. You can see it on Twitter. You can see it, anywhere where players can be posting about him, they are. And they absolutely love him. He is going to continue that streak of toughness. I promise you that. He is going to continue that streak of toughness. Obviously going to be a defensive-minded head coach, which I think would be good. It'd be a little bit of a change from the last 2 that we've had at Texas A&M and Coach Selman and Coach Fisher. And I think that might be something that continues that toughness streak going and can really lead to some greatness as a team. So Coach Robinson, we'd all be fired up about that. We absolutely love that idea. Next would be Coach Elko. And Coach Elko, very similar, defensive-minded head coach, was our defensive coordinator while he was there.
and he demands excellence. I mean, he demands perfection. And if it's not perfect, then it lands on excellent. And I just remember, kind of running some of the scout team stuff or being in meetings with him that he commands that room very, very well. He is a whoops. He commands that room very well, and he is a strict coach that's going to get all that he can out of his players, and so that would also be a great fit. And then Coach Traylor at UTSA, East Texas through and through, and he was our running backs coach at Arkansas. Absolutely love him. Absolutely love him. He's another one of those guys that is a player's coach. While he's got that old East Texas feel to him, and he's got that accent, and he's got that kind of toughness and that fire under him that you get in East Texas, he also has the understanding of, look, some of these guys are 18 years old. Some of them are 17 when they get in there. And so he has a lot of understanding for his guys. He was handling the running backs, and the running backs probably aren't always the easiest room to handle, but all of his running backs absolutely loved him at Arkansas. And I've talked to some of the guys down at UTSA. They love him down there. And so I think that would be a great fit. It's a Texas guy through and through that would, be getting the opportunity of a lifetime. And I know that he would take advantage of that and just absolutely crush it.
Well, Nick, I think we've completely solved all of college football's problems in this episode, because it's been a lot. We've gone through a lot today. I thank you so much for giving us some time. I know you mentioned it at the beginning. Sea Kings this week. It's playoffs, right?
It is CIF semifinals Friday night, 7 p.m. home game versus Yorba Linda.
There he is, and be sure to follow him on Twitter, Instagram. He's posting all kinds of stuff from his coaching adventures out there. Give the handles for the people.
Oh yeah, on Twitter it's Nick Starkel, and on Instagram it is. Oh, sorry, it's X now. On X it's Nick Starkel. On Instagram, Nick.Starkel. Yeah, you guys can follow us along for this season to see what's going on out here and trying to keep up.
Awesome. So again, thanks so much for joining us this week, Nick. We'll be sure to connect with you again as the season moves on. And thanks everybody for watching on theeagle.com. We'll have plenty more content coming up as the Aggies face Abilene Christian and look for a new head coach. Thanks everybody.